It was during this time of crisis His Majesty King Mohammed VI saw an opportunity to emerge, to inspire, to uplift, to take on the challenge of protecting the country, and to support his African friends. An insightful vision and an unprecedented response to COVID-19 crisis, a response that was based on 5 principles set by His Majesty the King: solidarity, anticipation, prevention, a holistic approach, and prioritizing citizens, especially the most vulnerable ones. As soon as the very first cases were detected in the country, Morocco proclaimed a state of health emergency. His Majesty put an insightful strategy to manage the crisis on the national and international level. His Majesty King Mohammed VI gave his high instructions to the government to create immediately a special fund dedicated to the management of the coronavirus pandemic and to cover the cost of upgrading the medical system. To be effective in crisis management in a pandemic age means being able to use the collected funds strategically. In this sense, and following the instructions of His Majesty, Morocco has channeled the available domestic resources to the COVID-19 Special Fund into 3 main orientations. On the healthcare level, COVID-19 Special Fund will cover the cost of upgrading medical infrastructure and additional means to be acquired in the event of an emergency. On the economical level, the Special Fund will support the national economy and help to cope with the shocks induced by this pandemic, preserve jobs, and mitigate the social repercussions of the pandemic. On the social level, the Special Fund helps provide informal sector workers with a stipend through a recent developed program. Facing COVID-19 pandemic couldn't be controlled without an action plan. A plan that was provided by His Royal Instructions that quickly helps to control the spread of the virus and reducing the number of infections among a nation of more than 35 million citizens. In this sense, His Majesty King Mohammed VI, the Supreme Commander and Chief of General Staff of the Royal Armed Forces, instructs the Royal Armed Forces to contribute in reinforcing the civilian health care and provide the health system with its infrastructure, equipment, and the human resources, and provide the field expertise in the management of natural disasters. His Majesty is managing the crisis with an insightful vision. He leads an unprecedented industrial and scientific revolution. While the world was facing a shortage of masks, Morocco has managed to make a virtue of necessity and has achieved the goal of providing face masks to the entire population and achieving a self-sufficiency in a short time. Not only that, Morocco exports of almost 20 million masks to many countries around the world, labeled "Made in Morocco." Thanks to the industrial transformation in which Morocco has engaged and adopted as a smart pandemic mechanisms, global industrial platforms in the aviation industry, managed by Moroccan engineers, with a sense of innovation, they produce a genuine artificial respiratory machines. A success story written with a royal ink. In its first chapter, Morocco showed resilience by deploying emergency response, developing a set of medical protocols for COVID-19, and equipping hospitals across the country with Moroccan-made medical supplies that Morocco used to import. Today, over 4 months into crisis, Morocco has the lowest fatality rate in the world, and what was imported before the COVID-19 crisis, it has become a national industry. In the middle of the fight against COVID-19, Africa is present in His Majesty's plans of action in order to lessen the impact of the pandemic. A pandemic that has created a reflex of selfishness in the world, yet in an act of heart for which His Majesty is accustomed by his legendary magnificence and solidarity with the African people. His Majesty shows solidarity by his pragmatic and action-oriented initiative towards his African friends, as if he is saying, "Your fight is our fight." On the international level, the King has issued a call to his fellow heads of state to develop a continent-wide framework to help vulnerable African countries facing critical challenges in combating the pandemic. After a video meeting with Hassan Ouattara, president of Côte d'Ivoire, and Macky Sall, president of Senegal, he discussed sharing best practices and lessons being learned to lessen the impact of the virus. Morocco has also mobilized national industry to produce personal protective equipment, namely millions of locally produced masks, granted 8 million of masks and medical aid to a number of African countries and to the African Union Commission. The Royal International Action initiatives to deal with the pandemic are also evident in Morocco's call to the UNA in mid-June. A call inspired by the humanist values and humanitarian principles that receive record support from 117 countries from all region groups, representing nearly 90% of the UN membership. It is indeed a true diplomatic achievement inspired by the humanist values and humanitarian principles that have always guided Moroccan diplomacy under the impetus of His Majesty. In his insightful vision and in the heart of royal ambitious projects of development, youth are always present. In this regard, His Majesty King Mohammed VI presided over the ceremony of presentation of the integrated program to support and finance enterprises. A program touches on three main outlines, namely the financing of entrepreneurship, the coordination of support actions for entrepreneurship at the regional level, and the financial inclusion of a rural population. This program includes several measures intended to contain and overcome the difficulties that hinder access to finance for young project holders and the very small and small enterprises. Mainly in terms of simplification of procedures, facilitations of guarantee conditions, eliminating personal guarantees, and the reduction costs of credit interest rates not more than 2% in urban areas and 1.75% in rural regions. His Majesty, in each opportunity, emphasized on the need to put young people at the center of the new development model and seek to enhance their confidence and give them hope in the future, stressing on the fact that the young people are the country's true wealth. For this purpose, King Mohammed VI has established a special commission for Morocco's new development model commission that includes 35 experts with diverse academic and professional backgrounds, working together, adopting a participative approach and outlining the contours of future Morocco. Morocco is already living in the future. It shows brilliant achievements in sustainability and development. In February the 15th of this year, His Majesty launched a new development strategy for agriculture sector, dubbed Green Generations 2030. A strategy seeks to push 400,000 households into the middle class and the creation of 350,000 jobs. The plan also aims to increase agricultural exports to $6.4 billion and the agriculture gross domestic products to $26.5 billion by 2030. Encouraged by the rapid advances in development research, Morocco believes that guaranteeing water security is a strategical goal. For that, His Majesty King Mohammed VI launched the National Drinking Water Supply and Irrigation Program of 2027. An ambitious program aimed to secure water supply up to 2027, and it is based on the consolidation and diversification of sources of drinking water supply, guarantee water security, and combat the effects of climate change. In this regard, Morocco has inaugurated the largest seawater desalination plant in the Mediterranean and African region in Agadir city. The health crisis will most probably last for the foreseeable future. It is intriguing to think how this will be seen in hindsight from the future. For now, Moroccans can stand tall with their king and his insightful leadership and be energized by the sense of cooperation and support that is evident to date.